Welcome back to The Resupply with me, Guy Next Door.
And me, Than.
Bringing you your weekly double tap of all things Laserforce and Space Marines. This week we have we've got a special guest who kind of holds court, if you will, in both hemispheres of the world. He was a long time Wellington player, had represented Wellington / New Zealand at several different national tournaments before we decided to export him because the pricing was really good on the black market at the time, and has since made his way into the merry old land of Detroit, Michigan. Welcome to the podcast this week, our man Baden. How are you, buddy?
Good, yourself, Steve?
Good, man. Good. It's good to hear from you. We haven't had a proper yarn since, Sacramento?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So, we wanted to get you on this week to kind of pick your brain about you as a player and you know, where you've come from and where things are at with you at the moment. So, your life story. Tell us a bit about, you know, your early days of playing in lowly old Wellington.
Well, I signed up a month after Rusty. So he signed up in August. I signed up in September of 1996.
For those who don't know, Rusty is your older brother.
Yeah, my older brother, by 3 years, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, to the day, right?
To the day, yeah. Day, month, 3 years apart. That's pretty uncommon fact. But yeah, I got dragged in there on a school holiday program. After hearing how excited Rusty was with playing at it, so we gave it a go.
Yeah. And
like him, got hooked. I wasn't allowed to go to the members' nights and stuff until I was a little bit older by that stage, so probably a year or two, probably a year after he was playing competitively with the likes of Stallion, Truth, and Sacred and stuff.
Yeah.
And then, just started going every week from there.
Do you know what year that was?
That was 96.
Wow. So you've been playing basically on the regular semi-regular since 96.
Yeah, apart from that little hiccup I had with the management at Wellington Laserforce, which prevented me from playing, and I had to fly up to Auckland every month or a couple of months.
How long did they ban you for? Was it a life ban?
Yeah, it's a life ban. Yeah.
What did you do?
What did you do? Yeah, I know that you told me at one time, but I for the life of me cannot remember what actually happened that made that a necessity of you having to fly up to Auckland to actually get games.
All right, so I'll give you the real skinny version of it. So pretty much these owners came from owning a panel beating store, like a body shop for cars. And they were like, hey, we don't want to do this anymore, so we're going to go and buy a laser tag arcade. So all on board. And then it didn't help that these guys are also heavy drug addicts. No. When I had done as much as I could do working there and I'd reached the top, I handed in my resignation. And that was turned around and met with a lifetime ban.
So you quit and they were like, well, if you quit us, you proper quit us. You're like,
yeah, they took it as a personal insult against them, with me trying to excel in my career, and yeah, down came the ban hammer, and it's been sitting there ever since.
It's the kind of forward-thinking people you want running a laser tag center.
Yeah, so if you ever see my name on the I Play Laserforce site, it is currently Evil Bum. That's thanks to
they changed your name.
The Laserforce Wellington owners, yeah, and because my dominant amount of games are in Wellington, that's my recognizement for name currently.
Wow,
it's fantastic.
That is so fucking ridiculous. I mean, I don't even have words. I am literally speechless right now.
Hey, it's humorous to look back on now, so all is well.
I mean, okay, so that explains why you had to leave the country in order to play Laserforce, not just come up to Auckland, but you know, if you're gonna be on a plane, you might as well do it properly, right?
For sure. Yeah, I don't know if Detroit would have been my first pick as far as the Laserforce ground would go, but in the US, but here we are.
So that happened, because you obviously came over to Chula Vista when we played there. Was that kind of the catalyst for you making your way to Detroit?
Well, the reason I got into Detroit is because obviously that's where my wife's from.
Yeah.
So obviously I met Rachel in 2010.
Yeah.
and we headed off in like 2011, and it all just came down to who wants to move, me or her, and it was worked out. It's probably easier for me to do it as far as having the smaller family and stuff.
Right.
And I could pretty much get a job anywhere in the world with the qualifications I have in the emergency services field. So this is where I rocked up.
Yeah, right on. The Motor City.
I can call it that. Yeah.
That's one name that I've heard.
Yeah, one of many, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure as a 911 dispatch operator, you've probably got a couple of other names for it in various
Considering
times.
one of the cities I dispatch for borders Detroit. Yeah, we'll just say it's one of many names.
Black Tar Land.
Lots of land. Cool.
Okay, so now obviously you're a regular player for Detroit. How do you find what's kind of the biggest differences that you've noticed? In the players, or even players in your local scene, but maybe the players in the US compared to Australia and New Zealand.
There's no way I can say this without not coming off as kind of like a bit of a dick, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Just rock it anyway.
So the big difference, like with me personally, growing up in New Zealand, I was obviously playing under Rusty, who just kept getting better and better and better. And for myself and those around us, the goal was you wanted to beat him and push yourself and go against him and, try and get to his level or try and get past him. Whereas I noticed a lot of the US players, if you rail on them, they just give up and quit and walk out, which is a bit of a shame, really. So unless they get to play with the best people, a lot of the guys that I've come across here don't want to continue playing. They get very demoralized and they don't take it the same way as what us over in the Oceanic scene would do.
Well, because it's sort of heavily ingrained in the culture here that in order to get better, you have to play the best. You have to play better people. And yeah, it sucks getting your ass beat like over and over again, but when you eventually, well, at least in my experience, when you eventually get to nationals, you realize, well, hey, like these guys, are on par, with the best players in our maze, and it's not a big of a shock. I mean, it's still a shock, but not a big of a shock, right?
Yeah, like I want to use Loveland as an example. So 3 or 4 years ago, when these kids first cracked onto the scene, I don't even think they can correct me in the post if I'm wrong, but I don't even think they won a game in the first outing I had against them. And then you fast forward to Nats last year, and look how far those kids have come. They started taking games off people. Even when they came to Detroit for ECT, they finished third. They beat Syracuse.
Yeah.
So those guys play leagues every week. They've got 4 teams, and they're up and coming hugely. So they're kind of the new fresh blood, you could say, that are kind of following in our footsteps, whereas the more old school players are still stuck in the old ways of they don't want to really push themselves to get better. They just want to have the easy street. So
it is interesting because in the prep or the build up for nationals last year, I can't remember who it was. Somebody basically said, we should be able to smoke the Loveland team because based on previous performance, they're still new, they're still learning the game, they're not super great, and they just came in and like were really, really good. It was awesome to see. From what I understand, Fair Turkey's making his way down for nationals, so it'll be really good to see how he performs at the motherland.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. I mean, obviously not all their boys are as enthusiastic about the rest of them, but
I
most
guess
of the top tier players want to rack your brain and ask you questions and actually focus on what you're doing so they can try and integrate it into their game, which is cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see that at any site, really. It's a shame that the attitude sometimes is, well, if I'm not on such and such's team, I'm not even going to bother. I don't want to play. So,
though to be fair with that, I don't necessarily think you can put that down as just an American thing, as it were. I mean, I know that during my time in Auckland, we had players like like that as well, unless they were, on the side that was stacked, so far into favor of them winning games, they didn't want to play. So, I'm leery of saying, oh, this is just an American thing, when the reality is that it seems like it's more of a societal shift thing, which, I mean, we can go totally, big and macro and deep on that as well. But I'm wondering if that's more just a sign of the current generation. Now, also there, I mean, that there is always that thing of, as all of us get older and grumpier, I'm looking at myself primarily on that. It's always the easy temptation to go, get off my lawn, you damn kids, and and you guys just don't want to work for it like we had to, and in my day on Gen 4 suits, the only thing we had was a little light flashing on the back of the gun to tell us where we were on our shots and lives and all that good stuff. I'm just.
That's what I say. It's more. That's the biggest thing I've noticed in playing with the guys over in Auckland and Wellington, and Brisbane, and then moving over here. I didn't really come across. I'm sure I came across maybe one or two players in my time between Auckland and Wellington they wouldn't have a bar of getting smashed. But over here, it's become quite more significant, and it's a problem we're facing personally here in Detroit right now. Is we can't even barely get 10 people to play. We were supposed to play last night. We ended up with 7 people. So
is it like a case of because I know what you mean, Than? Like we had some guys who I wouldn't necessarily call vets with that kind of attitude, but is it a case of it's some more experienced players that you would kind of expect more from Baden, or is it just general kind of vibe?
See, that's where it's kind of catch-22, really. I could go pretty in-depth with this, but there's not really a lot of point in doing it.
Right.
So that's why I kind of just left it as that's my general observation of that's what I think is the biggest difference between the US and Australia. Yeah. The Aussie kids, they want to get better, they want to push, they want to play against the best, whereas a lot of the people here, they want to play with the best, and they kind of give up if you're stomping on them. So
right. It's interesting because that's a very Australian mindset as well. Maybe not so much a Kiwi mindset, but like in Australia, it seems to be bred in people that being the best and winning and pushing yourself to be the best, those things are really ingrained in like every aspect of Australian culture. I mean, we notice it with sports of all creed. So I think that's probably why it translates over across into Laserforce. So one thing that I was wondering is, in terms of, because how many nationals or how many different mazes have you played in?
I have no idea. A lot.
This coming nationals would be what, like you're close to 15?
Yeah, 15 or 16 different nationals.
Yeah.
I've been to, and that does obviously I've done the West Coast and East Coast tournaments over here in the States.
Of course. Do you have a favorite maze or a favorite tournament that you can remember?
Honestly, last year Sacramento's my favorite maze, and last year is probably the best tournament I think I've ever done. So
really, from a playing perspective.
Well, just overall, like pretty easy way to sum it up is obviously we're coming into the twilight of certain players' careers, like Rusty, Traj. They're coming up to the end of it. Yeah. So getting to play with those boys last year, that kind of felt like the farewell tour.
Yeah,
like that was it. So that was kind of the highlight of my time playing, just to go with those guys, with some ones that brought me in.
Yeah.
So
because they're like a Traj or Rusty. Those guys are, I've said it before, legends of our game. So I guess you've played a few tournaments with them, right?
Yeah, I've done a few with Rusty, and I think I've done 3 with Traj.
Yeah.
So
because I think you did one in Auckland, one in Chula, Q's?
Syracuse.
Yeah, Syracuse.
Yeah, and then Sac. So
yeah, okay, cool. So it's obviously you're pretty familiar with how they play because you played against them as well for a number of tournaments. So it would have been pretty rad to play like potentially these guys' last touring nationals with them.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I said last year. Felt like, the farewell, and it was cool to go out like we did. So
yeah. Plus, it's always nice to play with your brother. Like,
oh man, for sure.
Yeah.
Like we never, even growing up in Wellington, I never got put on his team. It was always against him. So the times that I do get to play alongside him, they're the ones to remember. So
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
good times for family cause.
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to this year especially because this year my little brother's on the team. So I technically played a nationals with him in Chula Vista, but I was,
You were dead.
Yeah, I was
so
dead.
yeah.
Stupid Kiwi AIDS.
You got the plague.
Yeah. Or as being able to buy travel insurance, kids. So with Detroit, like I know that there's a colorful history, if you will. I wanted to kind of talk to you about the what's the best way to say it? The ownership.
Cult?
I mean,
if we're being politically correct, the ministry.
The ministry. Okay, so a little bit of backstory for a period of how long? 3 years?
No, it wasn't even that long. I think it was about a year and a half.
Year and a half.
Yeah.
Laserforce in Detroit were owned by what can only be described as a cult. How did that kind of affect your guys' relationship with the site?
Well, they pretty much killed tag here for Detroit during the duration of their ownership.
Yeah.
There were promises made to our players that weren't kept, and there was never a relationship between ownership and the player base.
Right.
So that hurt a lot as far as people playing and wanting to play, and it's caused quite a bit of chaos as far as the skill levels and things went.
Because did you guys host a tournament whilst they were in ownership, or?
They tried.
Yeah.
And the only person that came out was Venom, and some Syracuse guys came up for it as well.
Yeah.
The ownership pretty much paid for everything, paid for their flights, their accommodation, their food, you name it.
I mean, that's
whatever they could do to get people here.
That's pretty charitable.
Yeah.
If it wasn't coming from a creepy cult, then I would say that's pretty awesome of a site to do. But they did attend a tournament.
Yeah, they came down to. They attended a couple, I think. They went to Loveland.
Yeah.
Which left a very bad taste in a lot of people's mouths.
What happened?
So I wasn't there, so I missed that tournament. I was meant to go and form a team with Josh, but that never happened. So Josh ended up playing with whatever we're calling them, the ministry cult. And from the brief understanding, they were intentionally cheating and chasing the players out. Josh would be able to sum this up better, but I vaguely remember him saying he stood there and watched, I believe it was Michael Paul, purposely chase and kill Traj out of one of the clutch final games, and left a very bad stigma over the sport. And then again in 2016, we actually cancelled nationals because of them halfway through.
Really?
For the risk of physical brawls and stuff breaking out between players. So again, it was just miserable. They tried to twist and bend the rules as much as they could in their favor, which is why we had to redo the rules.
Yeah.
And reword them and make them a lot stronger and clear cut. It was an overall real shitty situation. I believe that's the first Nats in history that's actually had to be cancelled.
Where was that one?
It is.
That was in Syracuse, New York.
And that was another one where there was not a lot of traveling support for that tournament necessarily. Basically, because they were going to be there, there was literally no one from Sacramento that made that trip. That was a deliberate choice.
Yeah.
On Sacramento's part, not wanting to deal with that after 2015. And the thing that was really the most terrible about 2015 is that they were doing the deliberate cheating while being very aware of where the refs were.
Right.
it would be like there would be gaps in the coverage. I mean, we know as players, there's always going to be gaps in the coverage of where refs can see. I mean, that's the nature of how most arenas are laid out. In order to properly cover them, you typically need more than the 12 people that you can get schedule in as refs if you're doing a standard grid. And they definitely exploited that to its finest limits.
What a shame.
And I mean, as a very generalized statement, I know there have been some exceptions to this in the past. When most of us are playing, really, no one's deliberately trying to be a dickbag. Again, as a general statement, I realize that there have been some very massive exceptions to this situations in tournaments over the years. I'm looking at an Oakley tournament in Oakley in particular, where a whole bunch of refs got vetoed, and there were, I think, 3 refs to ref the finals, and that was just never going to go well. But bar some extraneous situations like that, as a general rule, when everybody in the community is playing, everybody's trying to play within the spirit and the letter of the rules. Some people may try to push things right to their edge. I'm looking at you, Rusty, because he does, and he will flat out say that he tries to play right up to the line on everything, and sometimes he goes past that line, and then you give him a penalty and he gets really pissed off. It's fantastic. But no one's deliberately trying to be a dickbag and cheat their asses off, and that was definitely not the case of what was happening in Loveland. And it just wasn't a good situation, wasn't a good vibe. I mean, probably literally the best time I had that week was after the tournament was done, to a Rockies-Reds game, just because, like, hey, wait a minute, none of us have been to this stadium. We need to check the stadium out. Of course, that was then tempered by coming home from that and having to be disappointed then, because of, like, everybody at the house was drunk and so terrible. It was, disappointed Than was disappointed, and we'll just leave it at that for the time being.
So I guess, like, during this time, like, were you guys still playing on the regular, Baden?
No, that was I believe that was still during their reign of ownership. The unfortunate thing is, it was one person in their group that caused everything else. Like, you remove that guy from the equation, and the rest of the people in the group were phenomenal players.
Yeah.
Like, they had so much talent to be fantastic. And not to mention, they're amazing human beings. Like, they're some of the nicest people you could ever come across.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that the person that kind of pulls the strings, the way he is. Because during the 2016 Nats, it was stupid shit. Like, he would intentionally shoot people one-handed, stick his phaser on the wall, blatantly, no regard for the rules. And then he would intentionally say he's lost in the arena while still communicating to his team where everyone was and trying to tell them what to do. He even had his own players telling him to knock it off and just shoot two-handed. We forced two-handed him. That was a game misconduct because he had like 8,000 points and penalties from shooting one-handed. And then he threatened to pull his teams out and leave, and hoping he would get his way. And when that didn't work, he came back in, and they tried a different course of action. So just overall, it's just literally that one person's influence ruined everything else, because there were some fantastic players and people in that group that if they weren't associated with him would be welcomed back and welcomed into our group with like open arms. So
right. And I guess that's kind of the cult-like dedication to this guy. That's kind of where that's all stemmed from?
Yeah, everyone's got their own views on it. I mean, who really knows, man?
Yeah. I guess unless you're in it, then if you're in it, you're in it, so...
Yeah, if you're in it, I'm sure you're not going to realize it, so...
Yeah. For anyone that isn't aware of these people, or like, you know, finds what we're talking about cryptic, if you want some more information, let us know after the podcast, and I'm sure one of us will fill you in a less public way.
You could literally just Google it.
Yeah.
And that'll give you all the information you need to know.
Sadly, he's not wrong. He's not wrong at all.
Yeah, I think you sent me a couple of YouTube links, and
I mean, it's on Fox News. It's pretty big. So,
although, you know, famously Fox News are super reliable in their storytelling. So,
and okay, in this case, we can say they were
fairly accurate.
We witnessed the shit firsthand. So,
all right. Well, washing that bad taste out of our mouth. Where do you see kind of, are you guys bringing new blood into the center at the moment, or are you kind of in that phase that I think a lot of sites go through where you're kind of stagnant?
Well, we're super lucky in the fact now that we have amazing ownership and management at this site that have really done anything they can to be as accommodating to the members as possible.
Yeah.
We all know how hard that is to find in a laser tag site. So we've got a manager there called Kevin, and he's so accommodating to everyone. I mean, you can just ask Stan from this recent random draw tournament. Whatever we needed, it was never an issue for him or a problem. It was sure that's fine.
That was definitely it was a nicely run tournament from the management side, as far as like, oh, here's the facility, and do what you need, and you're good. You know, there were some things that we, as running it, could have done better looking back on it, but not really at all. But you know, like literally none of the issues with that tournament had anything to do with the facility or the facility management, or it didn't have anything to do with the facility management, and that's fairly rare in as much as a lot of the facilities that we play at do have friendly owners and managers. I mean, we do have to acknowledge that, you know, when we go to Syracuse, I mean, Sanch puts on a good show for us, as far as, you know, us being able to do anything we need to. When we go to Sacramento, Sean puts on a good show for us, letting us do anything that we need to. You know, so it's definitely something that we have at other facilities as well. But it was very, very nice to have that in Detroit also.
Following on from your question about the new blood and stuff, we have Jesse, better known as Death to All, who is also a manager of the facility, and they've come up with a members night, which is actually on tonight. I was going to try and go up there and help, but obviously here I am talking to you guys, where it's purely designed for getting fresh blood and new people in the door. So you have to have a membership to play, and it's nothing but specialty games. So
that's cool.
Jesse and Kevin are they're doing their darndest to get the people in the door.
And this is a different night than the one that you had last night. Is that the last night one was kind of more of a Space Marines training night?
Yeah. So Monday nights are Kevin gives us run of the facility, so it's closed. Mondays and Tuesdays they're usually closed.
Yeah.
Jesse takes time out of his day to come up there and sit. He doesn't usually play unless he makes up the numbers. But yeah, we play 6 till 10.
Yeah.
And that's purely just SM5. That's meant to be just seasoned players trying to get better and practicing. And Thursday nights again are another Space Marines 5 night, but that's open to, you know, your public, your newer people, and whoever else wants to jump in and play. So I mean, technically we get 3 nights of membership games and 2 nights of Space Marines. So as I said, we're pretty lucky to have the management in place that we do.
That's awesome. And do they get a decent turnout at the general membership night?
That fluctuates as well, man.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of dads that bring their kids into play.
Yeah.
They're pretty reliable, and the guys that don't want to take it like super hardcore, they'll come in and play as well. We kind of just ease them into it and see how they want to go. So we can range, like we were getting over 20 for a while there per night.
Wow.
And again, now we're down to like 10 to 12.
Which is...
It's just the ups and downs of a typical SM5 site. Every site goes through it. So
yeah, exactly. And I mean, if 10 to 12 is still, even with like newer players, it's still like a decent amount of people to play some good, fun games.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't take those games seriously. You just bum around and
try and
work
train
on
up the new guys.
Your game you want to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you guys actually play some Space on those nights, or is it mostly like D&D or Shadows or?
Thursday nights there was just Space Marines. That's what I'm saying. Thursday nights and Monday nights are purely Space Marines. Tuesday nights are going to be the everything type thing, D&D, CTF, yada yada.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, hopefully, because I was talking to, we've got new ownership as well, and like you guys, they are fantastic. Like they're on board with us as members. They want to support us, but they what they are lacking is I don't want to reference the cult, but a good like recruiting strategy. So
really.
Well, to be fair, Steve-O, the cult didn't do so good because they ran their business into the ground, hence had to sell it.
Oh, right. Okay, well, maybe stay away from cult-like recruiting strategies.
And for the FBI that's monitoring this, pay no attention to him. So.
There's no recruiting going on.
No.
But yeah, so that's one thing that we and I went down and played in their Saturday night party night a couple of weeks ago, and it was super fun. Like the place was packed. They had it would have been like 60 people in there, and I haven't seen Auckland.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was huge.
Wow.
It was so awesome, and so there was and of that 60, there was like. Maybe it's more like 50. Yeah. But like of that, there was like maybe 5 of us that were vets, and the rest was just general public. And everyone was in a good mood. The games were really fun. We just played like standard games all night. But there's no one there to kind of say to the better players, because there was actually some ex-zone players there, and they were doing pretty well. What's lacking is somebody there to say, hey, you've got the skill to play some better versions of our game. Like you should come along to a members night or something like that. So I think that's again, we talked about it in a previous pod. That's probably a massive thing that like sites to grow their competitive scene should do, but I guess there's no money in the competitive scene. So
well, see, we had Micro doing that here when he used to work for Dave.
Right.
He would usually work and marshal what they call tag tier drag, and he actually got quite a few of the players that we have involved now.
Yeah,
is purely because of him talking to them, saying, "Hey, this is what we play. Do you want to come in and check it out? I think it'd be pretty good at it." So yeah, we were half of our player base to Micro. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Of whom I haven't actually met yet. I'm looking forward to meeting him and his brother.
He'll be scared of you.
Why?
He takes a little while to warm up to foreign people.
Oh right, I've got a weird accent. He's like, I'm not sure about this guy.
Mate, he was petrified of me and Rusty in 2011.
Yeah, but you guys are giants.
It's got nothing to do with it.
I'm still scared of you.
Smiling. He's the most approachable guy you could come across.
Actually, I told him that he wasn't. Which I regretted later, because he actually is. He's super approachable. Or at least now he's super approachable. But yeah, okay. So
getting back though to the importance of having staff members that actually play the game and understand the game and have a passion for the game. I mean, that is kind of one of those missing pieces to building a large competitive scene within a site. Is you do need to have those people that are there and able to talk and recruit, and the reality is that really what you're trying to do as a staff member at that point is steer people away from the general public games where they can potentially really negatively impact somebody's good time, who may then not ever want to come back because they just got railed by somebody who's just bunny hunting the whole time. And you're trying to get them into that more advanced play so that they're at more of a level where they should be. And if you're able to do that properly, I mean, it does turn into so much of a win-win scenario. God, I hate when I slip into management speak. In as much as you've got you've got your newbie base and just regular gen pub people that are coming, maybe they come once a month or once every 2 months or once every 3 months, but they're constantly cycling back through because they had a good time. And then you've got your more advanced base that you give them a night on an out of the way night of the week that doesn't normally make much money, and you get them cycling in on this night that now that you've got this consistent $400 or $500 coming in on a Monday or a Tuesday that would normally get that income. And that $400 or $500 a week over the course of 52 weeks, I mean that adds up over time. It really, really does.
I mean, that's
and
your power for
unfortunately.
You guys are getting way too technical for me. You're gonna put me to sleep.
I do have that effect on people. Just ask my wife.
Hey.
But the reality is that I mean, if you can get and properly maintain an advanced player base and keep them relatively separate from your general public cannon fodder, but keep it involved enough where you can recognize general public cannon fodder that has potential.
Every side needs their own micro and pint size.
Pretty much, like those couple of members that just drive the I guess the social aspect of it. Because like I started playing because we had when I first turned up, there was a couple of people that were super nice to me. I was like, these people are cool, and like this game is kind of fun. Like I just want to kind of hang around here. So I guess if people don't keep coming back, if they're not having fun or don't like the people, well, don't like most of the people. So for this week, we'll probably leave it there. We got a good general idea of where you've come from and where things are at with your now home site. But thanks heaps, Baden, for joining us this week, man.
Yeah, no worries. I'm pretty sure we went off topic quite a lot, so
that's how we roll. Like
this will probably be the most downvoted podcast to date.
This podcast is nothing without its segues, so
I'm probably gonna get lynched, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's got to happen at some time, right?
Yeah, just Micro's been waiting for it.
Yeah, any excuse. All right, well, for this week, I've been Guy Next Door.
And I've been Than.
And always remember to backtrack, kids. See you next week.